Welcome to another episode of Mr. J's Workshop. Today I had a customer come in with these rocker switches and he wants them engraved with what they're going to be used for. So I thought this would be a fun project to show you or give you ideas for your experimental build out there. They really came out nice, and let me show you how I did that. Let's get started. So the first thing I did was I went to my trusty 3D printer and I made some fixtures to hold the rocker switch in the machine, that it registered in place, that I could take the rocker switch out and inspect it, and if I needed to do some more engraving on it, put it back in the machine and it located properly. Uh, I will say that 3D printer, since I got it, I've been working the hell out of it. Fixturing, tooling, organizing, it's been a great tool. So on these rocker switches, I originally was thinking of making a fixture to engrave all the rocker switches at the same time. I've had jobs in the previous years that I thought it was a great idea to do everything one time. It's faster, quicker, all done. But sometimes I made a mistake. Or sometimes, I hate saying it, sometimes my laser engraver has a mind of its own and it just creates a big mess. So I decided to do these individually. But it wasn't too bad because with the 3D fixture registered in the machine, it was very easy to take it out, replace it with another rocker switch, and put it back in the machine and engrave it. So the first thing to get prepared for was putting some type of stencil paper over the switch for engraving. So I'm trying out this stencil paper here, and I'll put the name up here. It's pretty nice. It's plastic. It has its pros and cons. So far, I've been very happy with it. It doesn't wick or bleed as bad as painter's tape when it gets flooded with paint. And what I mean by that is sometimes with painter's tape, if you apply too much paint on it, the painter's tape becomes a little wet and it allows the paint to bleed into areas that are not engraved. But you can clean it up afterwards, but it's extra work. So with this stencil paper I'm using here, it's a plastic and it holds up pretty good. Painter's tape, this plastic stencil paper, I think they're pretty close to being the same since I started using an airbrush. I haven't experimented back with regular spray cans to see if this holds to be true. My airbrush, I'm able to regulate how much air, how much paint that I'm applying to whatever I'm painting in the engraving. So I'm able to put very light coats in the engraving and I'm not flooding it. And this paint that I'm using, it's wick. It's a wicked paint. It's a white paint. It dries fairly quickly. It's an acrylic paint, and the results are very, very awesome. So I put the stencil paper on, or the painter's tape, but in this case I'm using the plastic stuff. Repeating myself here. But anyway, we put that in the machine, put it in the way I register it. I have these two boards that locate the fixture in the machine, and I engrave it. And in this case, I took 2 passes with this stencil paper, which is the plastic one, 2 passes at 30% power and 40% speed. With plastics, I like to start out with low power settings because depending on what kind of plastic it is, it could melt very quick. So I start with a low power setting, and the first pass usually cuts through this plastic stencil paper, and then the second pass actually engraves into the material. I'll take the rocker switch out of the machine. I'll put my magnifiers on, and I'll look at it to make sure I got a good depth to fill in with paint. And in this case, it worked out 2 passes at 30% power and 40% speed. Really came out nice. So once all the switches were done, I got my trusty airbrush, and as you can see here, I got 3D happy with making holders for my airbrush, organizers for my brushes, my cleaners. I mean, that 3D printer's been a savior here in the shop. So I airbrushed the rockers, and in this case I put 3 passes, so I put a real light mist onto it and let that dry. And then I put a second coat, and then the third coat I rotated the rocker switch and kept on hitting it to make sure I caught all sides of the lettering. And sometimes this is hard to see, so I use a head magnifier and examine it closely to make sure it got full coverage. And then after roughly a half an hour, I'll take the stencil paper off. I don't like letting it sit overnight or for a couple hours, because my past experience, especially with plastic and metals, when you do that with lettering is so small. I mean, it's really small. With lettering, it doesn't have a lot of surface to grab onto. So if you let it sit too long and you peel off that stencil paper, it pulls up the lettering. And now you have a little bit of bigger project of trying to stencil that again, so you're able to airbrush it, or in some cases I get a little toothpick, dip it in the paint with my head magnifier, and repaint all the lettering using a toothpick. These letterings are small on the panel. They're about 1/8 tall. That's pretty much your standard aviation height for lettering. And as you can see here, they really came out nice. I was really happy with the outcome. When the customer saw it, he was very excited, and he's a local avionic guy, and I really wanted to make sure he was pleased because I want him to keep coming back with work. He does some really, really nice work for the people out here in the Bernie area. Well, that's it. If you really liked the video, give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe, ring the bell for further notifications, and have a great day. We'll see you next time.